Hey, welcome to Tony Tone Barbecue. I am Tony. I appreciate you visiting my channel. Right now I'm just going to show you how to install temperature gauges in your offset smoker or your barbecue or whatever. It's really actually very simple. I have not put any extra thought or anything into this. This was just kind of a spur of the moment thing. I decided to go over to Home Depot and pick up these two temperature gauges so I can add it, and you see in my other videos I'll discuss it why it's you want to know what the temperature level is down here versus up here. So check my channel, you can find more information on that. Here are the tools that I am using today. I didn't go out and buy anything special. I just had all this stuff in my garage, so really all I spent was the 15 bucks each for those. The one thing you really want to make sure you have though is a hole saw like this or a giant drill bit, because the threads on this thing that go in here are kind of fat. It's actually a 3/4 inch, so I got a 3/4 inch hole saw, and it was just barely big enough to do the job. But you can get one of these at Home Depot too. They're like 15-20 bucks. So if you don't have that, then that's one thing you might need to pick up too. Anyways, here we go. I'll show you how it's done. No big deal. All right, before you go poking holes in your smoker or barbecue, you're gonna want to decide where you're gonna want those holes to be. Me, I kind of want it to be uniform. So what I do is I take my gauge here and I decide, kind of like the old eyeball method, about where I want it to be. I'm gonna want this one to be about right here. And it's helpful if you take a piece of cardstock like this or paper and line it up with the edges of your smoker. I've got a nice little seam here laid up against, got it lined up with the bottom here, and then just take a marker and decide about where you want that hole to be. Then go ahead and poke a hole there in that cardstock like I did here. And I know it's not quite the cleanest hole, but it's not a situation where I'm too worried about that. And I also marked here that this is the right side, so that I can just place this here, and then you can use a wax pen or marker if it's comes through dark enough, and you can just mark there where that hole is going to be. Now the other side, I wrote left side, because when you come over here, if you're a little OCD like me, you're going to want to make sure that the hole is the same distance from the side and the same height from the bottom as the hole on the other side. So if you go like this, it's going to be over too far. So marked it left side, flipped it over, and then same thing, make a little dot. Now you know exactly where you got to drill. Okay, another little trick if you're extra OCD like me and you're worried about that drill walking on you when you start drilling, little trick is you can take a old screwdriver or a pick if you have one like this, and line it up exactly where you're going to start drilling. You can take a hammer, give it a nice little whack, maybe a couple. Make yourself a little dent there so the drill will fall into that hole. All right, moment of truth, time to start drilling. Easy peasy. You're gonna want to check that hole, make sure you don't have any burrs sticking up. Got a little bit right here. Stick the chisel, knock that down. Nice and smooth. Okay, you've got your hole. Now it's time to go ahead and insert your gauge. Make sure you take the nut off the back of the gauge, and also notice there is a nut here on the back of the gauge. When you go to turn it, when you want to hold it, this is what you want to hold it to. You're not going to want to grab this because you could break it. So let's say you go to put it in a hole. What if it doesn't really go in the hole all that easy? Doesn't want to catch or anything. A little trick that I found that works pretty well. You got to be careful doing this. You might want to take off your hole saw and put in a regular drill bit, or if you're tough and you can hold on to it, just stick the edge of that in there like this and give it a little roughing around the edges. That'll usually clean it up just enough for you to be able to start threading in your temperature gauge. Now, if it gives it a little resistance, you can take a wrench and just help it out a little bit, just to make sure you don't put pressure on the gauge itself. You actually grab the nut behind the gauge. Okay, now you've got your gauge all the way in the hole there, and it's nice and loose, and it's time to go ahead and install the nut to the back side there. Now is a good time, if you're extra OCD like me, if you really want to make sure there's not going to be any leakage of anything coming out from behind that hole there that you're about to tighten down with this nut, to add a little of the Lava Lock RTV 450. This is the black high heat silicone. I'm just going to put a little bead in there, kind of up against the base of this thing. All right, let's add the nut. Make sure it's lined up right. There we go. It's always tricky having the exact right tool for the job. Sometimes you got to make do with what you got. There we go. This just needs to be snugged up a little bit. I'm not putting a lot of pressure on it, so if I need to grab it with the thinner wrench, I would, but really, it doesn't take much pressure at all. Nice and solid. Okay, so I'm about to install this second gauge, and tell you what, I'm going to let you see exactly what I go through during the installation process. One thing you'll notice is it really doesn't take too long. It only takes a couple minutes for me to do the whole thing, but you'll also see me fumble around a little bit, not using any special tools or anything. I'm kind of just using whatever I had in my garage, because I don't want to go out and buy a bunch of expensive tools to try to make this job any easier, but I still got it done just with what I had in my garage today. So if I can do it, anybody can do it. It's really not that hard. Cut a hole, stick it in there, tighten it down, big deal. Okay, here we go. All right, let's get the other gauge installed. And done. There it is. 2 gauges. Okay, so that's it. That's how you install temperature gauges in your offset smoker, your barbecue, or whatever. It's not that big of a deal, and it's not that expensive. Each of these gauges were like $15 at Home Depot. You can find them anywhere from 15 to 20 bucks each. Not that hard to do, and it'll give you temperature readings at grill level, which is a very handy thing to have if you are serious about barbecuing. I hope this video has been helpful, and don't forget to hit that subscribe button, hit the like button if you thought it was cool. Give me your comments and your questions. Thank you so much for being here and watching. Take care.